Hello, everybody. Welcome to New York Comic Con. I am so excited to be here. I know it's been a crazy year for cons, but this is the coolest thing ever because we have these video conferences where we can still have some epic panels, so we're not missing out. And this is one that I know myself and all of you fans watching are so excited to see. We are finally going to get to hear a bit about BRZRKR. It's an awesome comic book. I think you guys have all heard about it. I know if you guys are watching, you know a little bit about this comic. And obviously, I'm going to chat with our panelists, but I know that you guys don't really want to hear me talk. You want to hear all of our awesome panelists talk. So let's just jump right into that. And I'm going to introduce who we've got on our panel today. First up, let's introduce Eric Harburn. How you doing, Eric?
Doing great, Tiffany.
Senior editor at Boom Studios and a key member of the BRZRKR team. Next, he is a superstar artist known for his defining work on characters like Wolverine, Captain America, Hulk, Daredevil, and more. Let's welcome Ron Garney. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Great to be here. Hi, everybody.
I love you guys all clapping for each other. He is a New York Times bestselling author known for his work on Grass Kings, Bang, Folklords, and more. Welcome, BRZRKR co-writer Matt Kindt. How you doing, Matt?
Good. Cheers. Thanks.
And you guys know him from some of your favorite movies, from Point Break and Man of Tai Chi to blockbuster franchises like John Wick, The Matrix, and Bill and Ted. Let's welcome BRZRKR creator and co-writer Keanu Reeves. How you doing?
Yeah,
good.
BRZRKR. That's him right there, BRZRKR.
I know. Well, let's just I feel like I just want to jump right into that immediately because I've been working in comics for a while, and you hear so many different stories of how comic books come to be, but it's rare that one of the creators is literally like, I'm the character, or talks about it in that way. And I've heard it from so many people that that's kind of how Keanu's approached this. So Ron or Keanu, if you guys want to jump in a little bit on that, do you kind of feel like you are this character?
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's the approach I've been taking. I mean, the kernel of the idea came into my head, and you know, in terms of, but I did want to, when I originally thought of it, I did think of it as a potential role, but I didn't also, though, I mean, it's not really me, but it's me. It's like a work of imagination.
Well, if you read the first script, when you read the script, I hope that's not really you.
I was gonna say.
I mean, from front to back, it's pretty brutal. So.
Well, that's the trick with the writing too, is like writing really is role playing. So, you know, I feel like for me, it was easy to let Keanu just play that role while we're writing it. And then I'm the other character sort of like questioning, like, what are you doing? What are you about? You know? And then in a way that's like an organic way that we sort of scripted the book was just like having conversations, not necessarily in character, but sort of being that character for a while and interacting.
I think one of the best things Keanu does, though, is play really stoic characters. And this guy is, he's pretty much like that. He's an 80,000-year-old guy. And I think Keanu's got a great way of adding mystery to someone like that, you know, and that's what this character needs. You want to kind of look at him in awe and everything. When you look at, you know, Neo and the guy from The Day the Earth Stood Still and all these characters, I mean, they're all very stoic, quiet. This guy's not quiet when he acts out on things, but I would imagine he doesn't talk a whole lot, so.
Yeah. So for anybody kind of jumping in, can Keanu or Matt, can you guys just give us a little background? What exactly is BRZRKR all about?
Sure. So, basically, the structure of the story is, in the modern day, we're following a character named B. And then, so we have the origin story of this character where we learn about his parents and, you know, kind of how he was born, how did he become a kind of a half mortal, half god. At the same time, we're in present day America, where our character B has made an agreement with the United States government where he can kind of hide in that with his violence and what he has his compulsion to do, which he doesn't really want to do anymore. But and then but in exchange, they're studying him. And so there's a kind of scientific, emotional, psychological kind of background in his present day, the origin story that kind of flashes back. And so these kind of parallel worlds kind of come into this moment through the architecture of the piece. We're hoping for 12 issues. I mean, that's what we're aiming to do. Yeah. And it comes to this.
I don't drop dead first.
Garney.
We're going to write them.
Hands will be just whittled down to nothing.
Yeah. Just like you like it.
Exactly. Between that and playing the guitar, I see your bass back there. Is that a bass? Nice.
Yes, yeah.
I gotta ask too, because comic books is such an interesting space, because every book you hear that everyone's process is so different. But seeing you guys chat together right now, obviously you all have really good, awesome banter relationships. But can you talk a little bit about what is the process on this book? Because obviously you're like, we're going to do 12 and I'm going to push you really hard. And then we've got Eric coming in who's like, is there already a process before you got here? So can you guys just talk a little bit about process on this book?
Yeah, I mean, I met with Boom Studios, and then we were talking about a work, and they asked me if I had anything to, was I thinking about anything, and came up with BRZRKR, and then they liked that idea. And I've never been a part of making a comic book, but they said, don't worry about it. We're going to help you through this. And then they started to, introduce people, and that's where I met Matt Kindt to write it. And then they've just been kind of cultivating the team for it. And then the beginning was kind of super meetings, whiteboards, Matt and I, the other folks at Boom, Matt Gagnon, Stephen Christie. I met originally with Ross Ritchie, and but then we just kind of did super meetings, took notes, and then they let Matt and I just go off. And then we've been, I don't know, Matt, if you want to kind of talk about our process, but it's kind of a...
Yeah, I was thinking about it the other day. I've never written, I've been in collaborations before. I've never written something like this where it's almost like it kind of reminds me of like telling a story through like an oral tradition where like we're writing it by talking about it, and then I'll go away and I'll write up an outline of everything we sort of talked about, and then we'll read that again, and then we'll go over it again. And it's like we really are like crafting it like by talking, which is the first time I've ever written something like that, and it's kind of fun because we're kind of like acting it out as we go, and it comes alive. Like anytime we do dialogue, Keanu's always reading it, and it's like, oh, that doesn't work. We fix it. And then it's been a great process, different than anything I've ever done.
Yeah, so we do outlines, and then Matt kind of draws the issue, writes the issue. We'll give notes on that. We have we kind of know where we started. We know where we're going. How we're going to get there, we're kind of figuring out, it's a wonderful world and sandbox to play in. Right now, Matt and I have completed issues 1 to 4, and then Boom Studios contacted Ron Garney. And then, so we're kind of starting to hand it over to Ron.
Yeah, they had incriminating photos of me. I couldn't turn it down.
Yes.
Ron, what is it like?
I was young. I needed to work.
Well, what is it like for you coming into this? Because obviously hearing Matt talk about it, we're just saying, in the comic book space, you don't usually have it where it's like storytelling and acting it out. And are you kind of getting that footage that Keanu's doing stuff?
Well, honestly, when you draw it, it's a little bit different because you tend to act it out yourself anyway. I've actually caught myself like mouthing the words and have the same facial expressions and things like that. But, I just read it and try to absorb it. And if it's clear enough, if I have any questions, if something's not clear, I just, I'll go to the guys and find out what they're thinking. But most of the time I just get into it, and I pretty much have to act everything out, and I have to think about the locations, and you really need a clear head. You kind of have to get everything out and then just let your instincts take over and just picture everything in your mind. It's kind of like being a movie director, really, but you have to act it out and then draw it. So it's a fun task at the very end of it. It's a very gratifying thing to see when it all comes out, comes together. It's interesting. They were talking about writing. I mean, sometimes an exercise I'll do is I'll draw just to warm up, and then just see where my pencil takes it, and see how whatever little story I'm creating, it tends to start to write itself. And I would imagine, you know, so you end up having a story just by whatever pops in your head, and then you try to make a story out of that. So I would imagine that's how it, you know, began with these guys, you know, this stream of consciousness, and then, you know, then you organize it. So.
And I gotta ask you too, Ron, on this one, there's so many reasons why you would have been drawn to this book, but is there something specifically on this one that you were like, I gotta do it? I have no choice.
Well, it's kind of in my wheelhouse anyway. I mean, you know, I love doing guys like that, you know. But obviously, it's funny because I had an opening, and this sort of just fell in my lap, and they told me about it, and when they said that, oh, Keanu really loves your work, I thought it was a joke, you know, at first. And then they said, oh, can you do a Zoom meeting? And there he was. So I was like, okay, I guess this is real. But, you know, and Matt, and, you know, it was just a great opportunity. And I'm very honored and thrilled that they thought of me for it. And here I am. So ready to rock.
And Eric, we got to talk to you about this one, because you've edited so many books. You've done tons of stuff with, you know, people coming in and wanting to do comics. But what made this one so stand out and different for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's these three guys and Bill and Clem. I think, you know, it's been a surreal experience for sure. It's been surreal, and it's been a privilege to work with these three guys. You know, we're talking about three legendary storytellers, all in their own rights. You know, and you know, I've never worked with Keanu. This is the first time, and I've never worked with Ron. This is the first time. But Matt and I have worked together for about a little over 4 years now on various projects at Boom, from Grass Kings to Black Badge, most recently the Folklords. So, you know, I'm always going to be excited to work with Matt, but the fact that this is so much more than that. It's Matt and Keanu, and as they kind of were talking about their process, they've really become this kind of mind meld. And it's been really, I've never worked on a book or worked with co-writers that are so closely together. Like this is, it's a real joy to see. And like when you're in the room and seeing these guys work, it's great. But also a big thing for us at Boom is, you know, we want to be a support system for the creators and help them tell their best story, but also get out of the way. So at this point, it's nice just to kind of hear about them having their regular meetings and getting stuff ready. And I'm excited to read the scripts when they come in, because they're overjoyed and they're excited about, you know, we have this one character named Jim, and they're like, oh, Jim's got an issue coming up. You're going to be excited. I'm like, all right, well, I'll keep my eyes on the watch, you know? So it's been great. And I'm really excited to be working with Ron as well. I think Ron has done some incredible work for 30 years now. And, you know, when I was first talking with Ron, Men of Wrath, if you haven't read Men of Wrath, it's a brilliant book that he did with Jason Aaron. And I think that in itself it's not exactly like BRZRKR, but the core of it, I'm like, that is the kind of story that this team is looking to tell, and I think Ron would be a great partner.
To Viacom too, so really happy about that.
Nice. Congrats.
It's awesome.
Well, and I think it's something that's so cool because, you know, there's so many times where a comic book starts and people are really excited about it, and you get the first issue out, and then, you know, everyone's doing so many other things, and all of you guys are so in this industry that it could easily happen that way, where it's like, oh, we'll get one issue. But because you guys are all so pumped about it, they're all coming out so fast. I think that's so cool to hear that, you know, how far ahead of the game you guys already are. And for you, Kia,
yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I'm like, we'll see about 6 months from now how ahead of the game we are.
Well, I feel like the connection that you guys at least have is super helpful on that.
Look at Eric's face when I said that.
This isn't water, yeah.
I love it that we're actually like getting the real dish now. Before it was like, everything's so great. And you're like, nah, I mean, okay, yeah.
Well, this whole thing is passive aggressively telling us to get back to work.
Yeah,
Thanks, Eric.
I want to ask too, because I know so many people, Keanu, when they heard that you were going to be involved in this comic, what was it about this story, this character, that you were like, yes, this is going to be my debut into comics?
I think, well, when the idea of it was, you know, fun in the sense of not necessarily, well, kind of hyper violence. Like, I was talking to the director of John Wick, Chad Stahelski, and he's like, so what are you thinking about? I'm like, well, I've got this idea and I just want to do this thing where like the guy punches through someone's chest or rips an arm off or slices someone in half, and you know, there was just kind of, you know, and maybe fights through different eras and times. He's a Viking. He's in the, he's with the Roman armies and the Napoleonic army. He's in the First World War. He's, you know, and then started to turn into, well, who is that person? Who is that guy? Well, who can be that vessel? What's that story? And then this kind of origin story of, I don't want to give too much away, but basically, you know, his dad's not immortal. So, and then that turned into the kind of potential of this guy who's kind of cursed. He's compelled to violence, but he's also, he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to kill. He doesn't want, you know, he finds life precious, but he's got this, he can't die. And so I thought that was an interesting problem. And I thought it was a kind of interesting psychological journey. And he's kind of like, for him, it's like, for us, time speeds up. For him, time is slowing down. And this, he wants it to end. He wants his mortality. He wants to not be compelled to this violence. And I thought that this also could kind of shine a light on some of our own nature, you know, and just having this kind of the pathos of this character who's still, you know, he's got trauma, he can remember everything, but he's got memories that he doesn't want to remember. And so I thought that was psychologically interesting and something that we could all relate to. And so he's kind of dealing with his past to be in his present. I found that interesting. And then I thought, well, that character also, if we're going to study him, if you want, you know, are they going to clone him? Is it like super soldiers? Are they looking for immortality? And then I thought that could be really interesting because we could just open up the playground and say, well, we could play with his DNA. We could talk about kind of quantum mechanics with his,
I love
kinds of energies in his body and spirit. And then where does he go into this other plane that goes into the kind of immortal, like, what is that? What's going on here? And I thought, you know, yeah. And then this guy who's compelled to violence, who has to hide in violence, you know, so he has to fight, he has to, you know, but then how can he love? You know, where's the love for this character and the loneliness of that character? So I just thought there was lots of stuff to do with it.
Well, I mean, I think that's something, for me growing up getting into comic books, I think when you're younger, you get into for certain reasons. And then the older you get, I find that, you know, there's so much stuff you can talk about in comic books that's easier to approach because it's art, because it's in a comic book form instead of it being, you know, in a normal conversation with people, that you can approach things in a different way. I've always loved that kind of stuff in comics, but then finding a balance of that, and Matt, for you taking all of the things that Keanu has said, where it's like, how do you find the love? How do you find the humanity in this?
You know, there's I don't know how many Star Trek fans are here on the panel, but there's an episode called Requiem for Methuselah, I think it is. And it's about an immortal guy who actually goes through time, and he actually is Brahms and Leonardo da Vinci and all these, you know, famous, you know, geniuses throughout time. And ultimately he ends up, it turns out he had some sort of gland or something that made him immortal, or I don't know, but it kind of touches upon all that, about his loneliness and how he builds an android to, you know, because everybody in his life passes away, and he, you know, so he builds an android that won't die, that he can go through time with. So it's kind of like
Matt
that.
Kindt, what can we do with it?
Is anybody familiar with that episode?
I feel like you're talking about, like, I'm literally binge watching all of the Treks right now.
Oh, you are?
Next Generation. Right now, I'm in Deep Space Nine.
This was the original series. So.
Yeah. The what he's like, he takes them and wants to play a game with them and traps them. Anyway.
Yeah, well, right.
No,
I won't give away.
What I like about our character is that, like, it's, to me, there's a twist on it where it's not just this guy that can live forever and then he's just sad all the time. And I think that was one of the things we talked about earlier. It was like, he doesn't want to kill himself. He doesn't want to die, but he wants to be able to die. Like that idea of like you having a finite amount of days, like and how that gives your days meaning then. Like if you have
so
days,
true,
those days don't have meaning, but if you have a finite amount, then like that's part of it. Part of his journey is like trying to figure out what he is, like for himself. Like who is he? What's his purpose?
It's interesting you would say that, because philanthropically, I feel like, you know, people, there's a lot of good people in the world, obviously, and they want to do good things. And then I think as they get older, they start to panic that they only have a short amount of time. And it either can go two ways. They do even more good things, or they start to become more self-involved and trying to get things done for themselves and their, you know, and their immediate family, and, you know, and they kind of, the philanthropy falls to the wayside a little bit. But it's interesting you would say that. It's something I've noticed.
It's again, going back to what I was saying in comics, that it's just like, you can explore all of that stuff in these interesting ways. And I think that I was excited before, but now I'm even more excited hearing you guys all talk about this book, that how many different levels there are going to be that fans can enjoy when they're reading it. Not only just the awesome ultra violence that's in there, but the humanity of this character and how he decides to use what life he has. Because it is something where it's like, if you have an infinite amount of time, how is something important if you can always try it again or do it again or experience something again? And I got to ask too, because obviously in your mind, each of you have spent a lot of time with this character B at this point. Matt, how has the character evolved for you from when you first were introduced to now?
Yeah, I do. I think early on, like the first time we ever talked about it, I'd been kicking around ideas. I wanted to do something with an immortal type character forever. But for me, it was always about like, I was like, oh, he could go through all of history and like he's lived and seen all of this stuff happen, you know, all the different world wars and then different historical events. And then, so I came in like that. And then Keanu was like, yeah, but he's not going to see everything, you know, like, and I loved the take on this character where it's like he, like living forever and seeing all that, like the writer in me wants to show every cool part of history. And then every issue is that. But then the more we talked about it, the more it's like, yeah, you know what, there's a character in there, Caldwell, who's just like, he's like the super nerd. He's like the me of the book or whatever. He's like, yeah, so tell me about where were you in World War II and during this time or whatever. And then B, the character's just like, man, I wasn't there.
Everywhere. I don't know everything.
Yeah,
I mean, part of the thing is that they're mining what his knowledge is. So they're asking him to like transcribe. Hopefully there's a sequence where they're asking him to kind of transcribe some hieroglyphics and stuff, and he's just like, no, that's wrong. That's right. And then maybe they'll show him something, and he's like, no, I didn't get to know that one. So he's not everywhere doing everything.
All knowing.
Yeah. So we want to make this story fun as well, and there's humor in it, and I think. Well,
how much of it? If you're 80,000 years old, is his memory still as sharp as it ever was, or do you lose memories?
No. So what we're talking about doing is having him have quote unquote right now perfect memory, like he can remember a lot, but that he's got kind of repressed memories and things that he doesn't want to remember. We have this scientist, Diana, who's working with the American government. So they're basically studying him, and then they send him on missions when he goes into berserker mode, and then they take him back in. So she's kind of trying to get these memories out of him. And also that they're finding that when he's under certain kinds of stress or emotional stress, that they're want to learn more about him and his origin story and literally what he is. But yeah, so that's the kind of psychological, emotional part.
Yeah, that's the kind of mystery of the series too. Is he has perfect memory, except for these parts where he doesn't, and so then it's in a way he's almost like, don't look there, and it's like, well, why not? You know. So I think that's part of the mystery of the series that is going to be fun.
Well, yeah, especially if he only remembers the violence and he doesn't remember the love, like Keanu was saying.
No, but he does. But some of it. But we have a cool way that we're going to tell that. Issue 6. It's so good.
If I make it that far.
Garney, come on, man.
Use your other hand.
Come on. Just eat right, get plenty of sleep, and exercise.
I'll take my vitamins for sure.
Yeah.
We kind of talking about what you were just saying. How do you guys come up with the science of this character? Because there has to be, I mean, sometimes you can be like, oh, we didn't think about that later on. But at the beginning of this, it sounds like you guys really have developed an idea, a through line of like, what is the science behind him? How do his genetics work? How does he have blind spots in his memory?
Yeah, psychologically. And then, we're just making stuff up.
It is a comic book.
Might as well.
Yeah. You get, but you were talking about quantum physics and stuff that I'm like, maybe.
I love quantum physics.
Yeah, so
seriously, if you could put quantum physics in there, that's the best. I love it.
That's coming
you know
up.
What particle tunneling is?
Issue 8.
Nice.
Now you're sucked into at least
now I'm really excited.
Yeah, we're thinking like he's got different amino acids and kind of, what is his genetic material, and his makeup is a little different. And then there's some things that happen in certain moments that, well, I don't want to give that away. But anyway, yes. But we're just making it up, and we're kind of like, well, what about, yeah.
We established rules because if he's can't be killed, well, then what happens if he really gets injured or he really gets chopped up?
Yeah, how bad can he get injured? I mean, if you cut his head off.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out. It happens.
He's like,
we have answers.
And I have that. What?
Yeah,
Keanu knows every spot these things are in.
I love that. The last question I want to get into with you guys, I love the fact that this is started the hype about a Kickstarter campaign. Being a comic book fan, the industry has been, changed so much with everything that's going on right now, and finding a way to get people excited about comics and maybe plugged in that weren't involved in comics to begin with. How does that feel for you guys to have that excitement, have so many people be pumped, and people that maybe never even picked up a comic book before?
Yeah,
it's exciting.
I'm super excited about it. Having worked in comics for 25 years, to me, the extra attention it's bringing to just the art form, I think is just such a big boon to my favorite medium. I love movies and I love books, but comic books is the thing I love the most.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great because I think a lot of people take for granted, the things they see on television or in movies and things like that, and just how much of that lore really stems from this art form, like Matt was saying, so I think the more attention we can bring to it, where people have a greater appreciation for it, the better it helps it survive, because it's gone through some serious battles, and it's gone through some battles lately, the last couple of years, just in sales and, the advent of computer games and things like that. And kids really are, much more distracted by social media and things like that. But if we can find a way to make this mythology important to them, in a way that hasn't before, because it really is, it's important mythology. And, so for me, that's, I think that's a great thing. So, people just understand just how deep this runs, It's not just a comic book, but it's literally mythology, modern day mythology that hopefully, down the road and, however much time goes by, people will remember it for that, So that's the way I look at it anyway. And who am I?
Ron Garney.
How's it feel for
Keanu.
having so many people kind of hyped and excited about this project?
Say again?
Eric,
Sorry?
kind of jumping off of that question where it's like the industry, you know, having this new wave of people where it's going to get a lot more people checked in and excited. How does that feel for you getting to work on this book at Boom?
No, it's great. And like you had said when you kicked off the question, our biggest goal at Boom for the Kickstarter was for it to be this new kind of experiment in reader outreach. You know, this is, as you said, that the industry has gone through a lot of changes the last few years. And in particular, Kickstarter has become this really vital tool for all types of creators and getting stories out to readers. And I think it's you know, our CEO Ross had a great article about this, but it's like, it's the closest, it's the smallest gap between the story producers and the readership in the history of the medium. You know, it's one click. So you can send this, you know, send the link to your family in Middle America who have no comic shops around them, have no idea how to even get to a comic shop or pre-order or do all of the arcane kind of things that you need to do to get the content. No, you can just send the link and they can click it and they'll get the book in 6 months or whenever they release. It's even quicker than Amazon. So it's really exciting, and I'm really proud of Keanu and Matt and Ron and everybody on the team, because I think this is such a great book to be a vanguard in that way, and to be at the forefront of the medium and the art form. And I'm just really excited. I'm excited to get the book into people's hands, and as many people's hands as we can.
Awesome.
Eric, a real quick aside, I must say you have a beautiful set of locks on you.
Thank you. Thank quarantine. It's been a while.
They rival Keanu's.
Way to bring it from like a fun and sweet moment to you got compared, dude. I like it. I gotta say a huge thank you to all of you guys for joining us. Keanu, Matt, Ron, Eric, thank you guys so much for coming to talk with us about the secrets of Berserker. And thank you guys all so much for watching. Don't forget, you guys, visit comicshoplocator.com to find your local comic shop where you can pre-order Berserker #1 before it debuts Wednesday, February 17th. Or you can pre-order the first graphic novel collection from your favorite bookseller before it debuts next September. Thank you guys all so much. And Keanu, I know we talked about this.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Everyone who's contributed, thank you.
Oh.
Excellent.
Excellent. All right, you guys, thank you all so much. And Keanu, if you have anything, I know you said at the top you kind of wanted to have a little throw out.
No, just thanks to you know, you kind of said it. I just, you know, I think we're all grateful to be here and to be having the chance to be making art. And just thanks to everyone who's interested in the project, and hopefully, and to spending some time with us. And hopefully everyone will be okay. We'll do all right. And we can
Gonna be great.
Stories and share stories, and that's also thank you.
Thanks, you guys, so much.
Thank you.